At the engagement banquet, Ethan Carter announced the wedding date. All the guests smiled and offered their congratulations to me. But the very next second, Ethan Carter pulled a young woman in a white dress onto the stage. Everyone turned their astonished eyes toward me. Indifferently, I said a single word of congratulations, then turned around and left the engagement party. After that, he canceled the engagement. My mother forced me to get engaged to Ethan Carter once again, but this time, someone was unhappy. He took out 2 red marriage certificates, stunning everyone. Wendy and I are already legally married. This engagement party will have to change the bride. When I stepped out of the dressing room, a round of applause echoed through the banquet hall. I lifted my dress and quickened my steps, just in time to see Ethan Carter pulling a young woman in a white dress out of the crowd. The applause came to an abrupt stop. Ethan Carter's voice was so clear that every word reached my ears. I hereby announce that Anna Carter will be my fiancée from now on. My steps slowed, and I stopped behind him. In that instant, everyone's eyes focused on me. There was mockery, there was sympathy, and there was also undisguised schadenfreude. "Then what about Wendy?" one guest asked. Ethan Carter held Anna Carter's hand, his expression indifferent. "She's just my uncle's daughter." Just my uncle's daughter. Was that how he chose to define the relationship between him and me? The hand holding my dress trembled slightly. This engagement banquet had gathered the entire upper class of Shanghai. Moreover, the Miller family's industry and the Carter family's business had been closely tied since the previous generation. If news spread at this moment about a change in the main character of the engagement party, both families would suffer losses that could not be predicted. Ethan Carter was certain that I would care about our shared interests, which was why he dared to stage this last-minute switch right at the engagement banquet. "Ethan Carter, you really are ruthless." In the crowd, my mother gently shook her head at me. I took a deep breath, forcing down the anger in my chest. 2 years? Just 2 years. I treated it as if I had fed it to a dog. I could accept losing to Anna Carter. After regaining my composure, I took a glass of champagne from a passing waiter, turned back and raised it toward Ethan Carter. "Congratulations on your engagement, my future brother-in-law." My eyes met his, and the smile on my face was flawless, without the slightest crack. Ethan Carter held Anna Carter's hand, his smile unchanged. Thanks to my performance and Ethan Carter's cooperation, a perfect way out was created for both the Carter family and the Miller family. Finally, Grandpa Carter frowned and announced the engagement of Ethan Carter and Anna Carter. The farce came to an end. The air in the banquet hall was suffocating, so I went out onto the balcony to get some air. The night sky was beautiful, countless stars scattered across the Milky Way. But before I could appreciate it, someone interrupted me. "Wendy." Ethan Carter lit a cigarette and leaned against the railing beside me. "You did very well today. Aren't you going to explain anything to me?" I tilted my head and looked at him. Ethan Carter exhaled a stream of smoke. "I fell in love with Anna at first sight. She doesn't know about our relationship. You've always been sensible. Don't cause trouble for her. If you make a scene, it won't be good for you." I suddenly raised my head. The sarcasm in my eyes made Ethan Carter freeze for a brief moment. "Ethan Carter, you're rotten to the core." I left the banquet hall. On the drive home, every memory I had with Ethan Carter replayed before my eyes. Because of the ties between our families from the previous generation, Ethan Carter and I had grown up together since childhood. Even when we went abroad to study, we chose the same country. In that foreign land, I confided everything in him. He knew very well that the Miller family was the place I most wanted to escape from, yet he still used it to threaten me. I wiped away the tears that were about to fall. One day, I would definitely leave this place. I drove into my usual bar. Only there could I finally release the pain in my chest. Dusk had already fallen, but there weren't many people in the bar. When I walked in, there were only a few familiar regulars scattered around. I propped my chin on my hand and sat at the bar. Today, I actually had some free time. Jason Tate poured me a glass of liquor and slid it over. Smiling, I slowly rotated the glass and leaned a little closer to him. "You're this good-looking. Being a bartender is such a waste. Want to come work for this rich young lady instead?" He gently pushed me back. No thanks, I'm doing just fine here. What a pity, what a pity. I shook my head and pretended to be disappointed. Jason Tate was really interesting, clearly working in a bar, yet he was surprisingly pure and upright. I took a small sip of the drink and stopped teasing him. Was there some big event today? Jason glanced at the dress I was wearing, which clearly didn't belong in a bar, especially not an engagement banquet. The hand he was using to wipe the glass paused. An engagement today? And you still came here? Your fiancé ran off with someone else, didn't he? So you came here to drown your sorrows? He set the glass down, his gaze on me carrying an indescribable meaning. Drowning my sorrows with alcohol? Not worth it. Ethan Carter wasn't worth me drinking myself into misery. But teasing Jason Tate a little was still an option. I lowered my eyes, brushed a lock of long hair behind my ear, and nodded. Yeah, I'm really heartbroken right now. Aren't you gonna comfort me? Wendy, I'll take that seriously, he said in a solemn, proper tone. Just as expected, it was him. He really couldn't tell a joke. All right, I won't push it. I raised my hand and glanced at my watch. 2 hours had passed. The banquet should have ended by now. I stood up, ready to leave. The moment I got up, Jason Tate grabbed my wrist. I looked at him in surprise, and the words that slipped out were instinctive. Changed your mind? Want to come with me? You've been drinking, he said. The hand holding my car keys froze. So he was actually telling me not to drive. How boring. Since that was the case, I tossed the keys to Jason Tate. Then I'll trouble you. His eyes filled with hesitation. I ignored it and walked straight out. Soon after, footsteps sounded behind me. At least he knew what was appropriate. When we arrived home, the lights of the villa were already on. They were all back. As soon as the car stopped, I got out and walked toward the house. Wendy, your car. I didn't turn around, just waved my hand. You can drive it back. Remember to pick me up tomorrow morning. A free driver? What a bargain. When I stepped inside, all the key members of the Miller family who had attended the banquet were standing in the main hall. Not a single one was missing. Interesting, wasn't it? I clearly didn't tell Ethan Carter to change partners, so why did they all look like they wanted to kill me? Wendy, why are you home so late? My mother sat upright, composed and dignified. My fiancé was stolen by someone else, so I went to a bar to drink away my sorrows. Ignoring everyone's shock, I pulled over a chair and sat down. Wendy, look at yourself right now. What kind of behavior is this? What kind of behavior? Not dignified enough? Not proper enough? If I'm not the obedient daughter of a respectable family, does that make me less than human? Mom, if you have something to say, just say it. I didn't know what Jason Tate had poured for me, but now the drowsiness was starting to hit. Wendy, the Miller family isn't what it used to be, my mother continued. We can't compare ourselves to the Carter family anymore. Even though the two families' industries are still connected, the Miller family is no longer at the center. So what? The Miller family can't afford to lose the Carter family's investment. Even though Ethan was tempted by another woman, the bond between him and you, growing up together since childhood, is something no one else can compare to. Go and appease him a little. Lower yourself a bit, maybe he'll change his mind. Men are all like that. I let out a cold laugh. Appease him a little, lower myself a bit. Ethan Carter had already stepped all over the Miller family's dignity, and yet my mother was telling me to go beg and compromise. Mom, do you think too little of me, or do you think too highly of the Carter family? A trace of irritation flashed across my mother's face. You useless thing, you can't even keep a man. What does the Miller family need you for? The anger in my father's eyes surged, as if he wanted to swallow me whole. Since you're so capable, why don't you go instead? I said sarcastically. Enough. My mother slammed her hand down on the table, cutting off Michael Miller's words. She looked straight at me, her gaze cold and complicated. Wendy, if the Carter family cuts ties with the Miller family over this engagement, then I'll find you another marriage partner. I froze. Ever since I was little, I'd known my mother didn't like me. I looked too much like my father, the man who cheated and was abandoned by her. Even so, deep down, I'd always held on to a sliver of hope, hoping that she might love me just a little. Now she had completely extinguished that hope. That was fine. From now on, I wouldn't dream anymore. So you're planning to sell me? My mother's expression didn't change. If you can't create value for the Miller family, then what difference is there between you and a piece of useless trash? I closed my eyes. In my mind flashed the 24 years of my life. It was absurd. How could I have been born into a family like this? I understand. I lowered my head. I was truly exhausted and didn't want to tangle with them anymore. My mother's expression softened. It's late. Go get some rest. Her voice was gentle, like that of a kind mother. I went upstairs. When I reached my room, I turned around and looked down. Michael Miller was saying something that made my mother laugh out loud, and she gently stroked his hair. They were the real family. I quietly closed the door. After showering, I habitually picked up my phone. There were many unread messages on social media, some from Ethan Carter, some from friends, and some from Jason Tate. Since we became friends, Jason Tate had never once initiated a conversation with me. Today, he had broken that pattern for the first time. I casually dragged Ethan Carter into my blocked list, then opened Jason Tate's message. If you need help, you can come to me. I laughed and didn't take it seriously. The tone wasn't small at all. He was just a bartender. What could he possibly help me with? Even though I thought that, my fingers honestly replied, "Help with what? You wouldn't even let me see your abs. What could you help me with?" After a long while, Jason Tate finally replied. I opened the message. Oh. A photo of well-defined abs that made my jaw drop. Oh my God, was something possessed Jason Tate today? Do you like it? Another message came through. I patted my slightly heated face. It's okay. I curved my lips into a smile. I could practically imagine the speechless look on Jason Tate's face. The next morning, Jason Tate did indeed come to pick me up. But he wasn't alone. Ethan Carter was leaning against the car. The morning sunlight flickered over him, bright one moment and dim the next, like disco lights. I thought that after yesterday's farce, Ethan Carter wouldn't come looking for me again. I didn't expect him to act as if nothing had happened. My mother hadn't gone to the office yet. When she saw Ethan Carter, she hurried over. Ethan, come inside. Her face was full of flattery. She was no longer the strong woman I once held in my heart. I walked around Ethan Carter, preparing to get into the car. He reached out and grabbed my hand. Wendy, are you mad at me? I clicked my tongue. Brother-in-law of the Carter family. What are you doing? I still have to go to work. The words brother-in-law of the Carter family instantly darkened Ethan Carter's face. Wendy, Ethan is here. Go to work a little later, my mother said. I shook my head. That won't do. My boyfriend will get anxious waiting for me. Both of them were stunned. Boyfriend? Wendy, where did you get a boyfriend? Ethan Carter's gaze turned gloomy as he looked at me. I smiled brightly at him. Brother-in-law of the Carter family, I fell in love with him at first sight. He doesn't know about what we had before. My boyfriend is timid, don't bother him, or it won't be good for you. Ethan Carter probably never expected that the excuse he had given me yesterday would be returned to him today, word for word, so satisfyingly. Wendy, break up with him, he said. I'll pretend this never happened. That won't do. I love him very much. After saying that, I couldn't be bothered to care about Ethan Carter's face turning pale. I got straight into the car behind him. Once I was in, Jason Tate quickly started the engine, not giving them any chance to chase after us. So did we win? He asked, glancing at the rearview mirror. Seeing the ugly expressions on the two people standing outside, I smiled. Of course, a complete victory. After saying that, I turned to look at Jason Tate. Are you married? He shook his head. Then do you have a girlfriend? He shook his head again. Then would you mind having a wife? Maybe my words were too shocking. Jason Tate slammed on the brakes and pulled over to the side of the road. He stared straight at me. What do you mean by that? I want to register a marriage with you. This is the result of careful consideration. Rather than waiting to be sold off by my mother, I might as well take the initiative and find someone to marry myself, especially while my household registration book was still in my hands. Originally, my mother and the Carter family had planned that after the engagement, we would register the marriage before the wedding ceremony, with the wedding held later. Who would have thought that in the 21st century, I'd still get to watch a real-life farce of switching the groom at the engagement? Why Jason Tate? Maybe because he had abs. Jason Tate didn't say anything. Only the veins on the arm resting on the steering wheel slowly stood out. Damn, it was seductive. I offered an attractive condition. It's just a registered marriage, 1 year. After 1 year, I'll give you 300 billion. Jason Tate still didn't speak, only looking at me. His gaze made my scalp tingle, and I couldn't help shrinking back slightly. It was strange. Why did Jason Tate have such an overwhelming presence? I wanted to back out, but there really was no one else suitable around me. All the men I knew were either Ethan Carter's close friends or connected to him in some way. Other than Jason Tate, there truly wasn't a better choice. Thinking that, my tone softened. Jason Tate, help me please. I copied the innocent female leads from Japanese anime, grabbed the hem of his jacket, and gently shook it. But Jason Tate didn't fall for that. Wendy, do you really think marriage is just a joke? My eyes lowered. After Ethan Carter canceled the engagement, my mother had already started looking for another marriage alliance for me. My marriage was indeed a joke, something that could be traded with money. Jason Tate was silent for a long time, so long that I thought he was rejecting me. I let out a breath of relief. If that's the case, then forget it. I didn't want to lose even my friendship with Jason Tate. Then when? My mind stalled. I couldn't process what he meant for a moment. When do we register the marriage? The sooner the better. The longer we wait, the more likely something will go wrong. Hearing that, Jason Tate started the car again and drove until we stopped at a shopping mall. I didn't understand and followed him inside. What are we doing here? I asked. Buying rings. There's no need to be stingy about it. Jason Tate walked into a store on the top floor of the mall. I clicked my tongue. Rings from this brand started at tens of millions. Do bartenders really make that much money? Maybe they do. After I tried on a sparkling diamond ring, Jason Tate took out his card. Does your card really have enough money? I tilted my head and looked at him. The only response I got was a glance from Jason Tate. In the car, I stared at the diamond ring worth hundreds of millions on my finger and asked sincerely, should I change careers? Jason Tate sighed. Didn't you realize the owner of that bar was me? I froze. I really hadn't realized it. When I first met Jason Tate, he had been bartending for other customers, never refusing anyone. What bar owner would be that friendly? But his bar made so much money, I was honestly jealous. Did Jason Tate really need my 300 billion at all? In the future, how was I supposed to put on airs as a rich young lady in front of him? While I was still muttering to myself, Jason Tate's car came to a stop in front of City Hall, the marriage registration office. My heart suddenly began to race. Jason Tate got out of the car without the slightest hesitation. Wait, I called out. He turned back to look at me. Are you regretting it now? Of course not. I just want to ask, have you really thought this through? Once we register the marriage with me, for this entire year, you'll be tied to me. There will be a lot of trouble. I'm giving you a chance to regret it. Jason Tate suddenly smiled. Isn't it a little late to say that now? After that, he pulled open the passenger door and extended his hand toward me. I placed my hand in his. Jason Tate closed his fingers around mine. A cool sensation spread across my hand. It was his ring. The wedding ring, for him and for me. The marriage registration office worked efficiently. Half an hour later, Jason Tate and I walked out holding 2 brand new red marriage certificates. I shook my head. So this was marriage? I stared at the red booklet, my mind still struggling to catch up. A hand with long, well-defined fingers waved in front of my eyes. I snapped back to my senses and pulled the booklet back. What are you doing? I asked irritably. You still have to go to work. Stay at my place for now. Jason Tate's expression was serious. I shot him a look and deliberately teased him. Dear husband, then I'll have to trouble you to take me to work now. In that instant, Jason Tate's fair face flushed a faint pink. I had always known Jason Tate was handsome, broad shoulders, a slim waist, tall and straight. If it weren't for his overly upright demeanor, if he simply stood there doing nothing, all the male models in Shanghai's bars would probably be out of work. I never expected that when he got shy, he'd be even more, well, irresistible. I'd really hit the jackpot. I secretly raised my thumb in my heart. Jason Tate drove me to the studio. Before I got out of the car, he suddenly pulled me back, leaned down, and lightly kissed my forehead. It was just a brief touch before he pulled away. I froze in shock. We never agreed on this part. Be careful, he said slowly, his lips curving upward. My wife. I hurried out of the car as if fleeing. Jason Tate was definitely getting revenge on me for calling him husband earlier. That evening, I'll come pick you up, my wife. A message from Jason Tate popped up on my phone. Annoyed, I flipped the phone face down on the table. Such a petty man. Boss Wendy, what's making you so happy? My assistant asked curiously. Happy? Am I happy? Are you in love? My assistant was a young girl who had just started working here and knew nothing about my past. Why would you ask that? I frowned. Your expression just now, it was shy and annoyed at the same time. Isn't that what people look like when they're in love? In love with who? I rolled my eyes, looking at her curious face. Jason Tate? I sized her up. You sure know a lot. She immediately straightened her back. Of course. When I was in college, I was the love analysis expert of our entire department. Curious, I asked, then how many times have you been in love? She instantly deflated. Single since the womb. Pfft. I quickly lowered my head and organized the documents on my desk, afraid I might accidentally wound the fragile heart of my young assistant. Boss Wendy, I'm serious. The state you were in just now really was being in love, a sweet kind of love. She stubbornly defended her so-called professional identity. I nodded perfunctorily. Got it. Go help me get a file first. She stomped her foot and left unwillingly. After she left, I turned over the phone that had been face down on the desk. The screen was still on the chat between Jason Tate and me. Just a moment ago, I hadn't thought much of it. Now, though, those few words made my heart start beating faster. I pressed a hand to the left side of my chest. There was a faint, itchy sensation there, a feeling I had never once experienced when I was with Ethan Carter. Was this what my assistant meant by being in love? My thoughts were tangled like a knotted ball of thread. The more I tried to sort them out, the more chaotic they became. Earlier, to prepare for the engagement banquet, I hadn't come to the studio for nearly a week. Even though it was just a small photography studio, the workload that piled up over a week couldn't possibly be cleared in a single afternoon. By the time I finally finished and looked up, it was already dark outside. Out of habit, I picked up my phone to check the time, and only then did I remember Jason Tate, whom I had completely forgotten. Feeling guilty, I hurried out of the studio. Under the dim streetlights, a tall, slender figure was leaning casually against a car. He was still waiting for me. Something slammed hard into my heart, sour, aching, numb, and unbearably itchy all at once. Jason Tate lifted his gaze to look at me, his dark eyes shimmering. He walked over and naturally took the bag from my hand, as if he had done this countless times before. Finished? Why didn't you come inside? I didn't want to cause you unnecessary trouble. It's fine. Next time, just come in directly. Right now, I wanted the whole world to know that I was married. Jason Tate nodded lightly, then hesitated before speaking. Where are you sleeping tonight? Going back to the Miller house or coming to my place? I glanced at the time, almost 9. Taking Jason Tate back to the Miller house didn't seem appropriate, but going to his place also felt a little off. Let's go back to the Miller house. You don't have any of my clothes at your place. It wouldn't be very convenient to stay over. When I have time, I'll bring some clothes over. Even though Jason Tate and I were only in a contract marriage, we still had to put on a proper front. My place already has your clothes. I looked at him in surprise. How was that possible? The tips of Jason Tate's ears seemed to turn even redder. I prepared them today. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. After hesitating, I finally spoke. Then, I'll go to your place tonight. Jason Tate nodded with quiet confidence. Ha, typical man. Jason Tate's home was a luxury apartment in the city center, only a 10-minute drive from my studio. My mother had never allowed me to casually purchase real estate, so even when I worked overtime until midnight, I still had to drive an hour back to the Miller house. Now, thanks to Jason Tate, things were different. He handed me a silk pajama set. It's late, you should shower first. He really had prepared everything. I stared at the pajamas in his hand, momentarily stunned. You don't like them? Jason Tate asked. I shook my head, quickly took them, and went into the bathroom. Normally, teasing Jason Tate felt natural enough, but now that we were actually alone together, everything suddenly felt awkward. When I came out of the bathroom, Jason Tate had already changed into his pajamas. Where am I sleeping? I asked, pretending to glance at him casually. I had no idea where he'd gotten those pajamas from. They were semi-sheer, and beneath the fabric his 8-pack abs were clearly outlined. This was dangerous. This room, Jason Tate said, pointing to the one behind him. I stepped inside suspiciously. The room's style perfectly matched my aesthetic preferences. What was going on? Had he remodeled this room? Otherwise, a pale pink bedroom like this didn't look anything like Jason Tate's style. Do you like it? He walked in behind me. I nodded and added casually, this doesn't really seem like your style. Jason Tate didn't explain, only saying vaguely, as long as you like it. As long as I liked it. But this wasn't even my house. I muttered inwardly. The room fell silent. I tilted my head to look at Jason Tate, and he happened to be looking at me at the same time. The air instantly turned awkward. I cleared my throat softly. It's late. We should go to sleep. That sentence seemed to carry two meanings, but before I had a chance to explain, the room had already fallen into darkness. A warm body pressed close to mine. Jason Tate's fingers were strong as they threaded through mine, our 10 fingers interlocking tightly. He let out a soft breath. Tonight is our wedding night. His voice carried an indescribable ambiguity. My heart jolted hard, but I had no intention of turning something fake into something real. Jason Tate guided my hand to his chest, then provocatively moved it lower. Satisfied? Instinctively, I gave a light squeeze. Oh my God, it was rock hard. I meant his abs, clearly defined, firm, solid. I swallowed. Satisfied. Jason Tate chuckled softly and bent down to scoop me up. I cried out, "Don't!" But the weak protest sounded more like an invitation to him. The bed sank beneath us. Jason Tate's arm braced itself beside me. "Wendy," he murmured in the darkness, his voice thick with an unexplainable allure that pulled me under. I relaxed, looping my arms around his neck. 10 minutes later, I was utterly powerless. "Jason Tate, are you even human?" Jason Tate ground his teeth. "You'll find out." By the time dawn was approaching, he was still relentless. A man who had been deprived for too long was no different from a piling machine, cold and unstoppable. My phone rang again and again without being answered. I was furious. "Jason Tate, even if I were a machine, you'd have to let me breathe at some point." The dim bedside lamp cast a soft glow on Jason Tate's curved smile. He lowered his head to my ear, his voice low and hoarse. "Wendy, am I good?" I almost passed out. After tormenting me for so long, all he wanted was this one sentence. I forced myself to endure. "You are. You're the best. Is that enough? Can you let me go now?" Jason Tate was still not satisfied and continued pressing. "I'm the best. Who else is there?" He clearly knew the answer, yet still wanted to hear it from my mouth. Damn shameless man. I bit my lip and refused to indulge him. My earlobe was gently bitten, rubbed, sucked. "Wendy." His teasing voice exploded next to my ear. I couldn't take it anymore. "No one else. Only you." Jason Tate finally pulled away in satisfaction. After an exhausting night, I eventually fell into a deep sleep. The phone suddenly rang in the room. Half asleep, I picked it up. "Wendy, where are you? Why didn't you come home last night?" It was Ethan Carter. I yawned. "You're overstepping your boundaries." "Wendy, are you still mad at me?" His tone on the other end sounded unusually cheerful. "What do you want?" I had no energy to talk to him so early in the morning. "Wendy, let's have lunch together today." Only then did I realize how bizarre Ethan Carter's thinking was. As an ex-boyfriend who had forcibly broken up, he actually thought we could still sit down and eat together. I was about to refuse when the arm wrapped around my waist suddenly tightened. "Wife, who are you talking to?" Jason Tate's voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to completely crush Ethan Carter on the other end. "Wendy, who's the man next to you?" Ethan Carter demanded. "What does it have to do with you?" "Wendy, have you forgotten you're my girlfriend?" I was so angry I laughed. "Ethan Carter, do you need me to remind you? 2 days ago you got engaged. Your fiancée's name is Anna Carter. If you're sick, go get treatment. Stop bothering me." Jason Tate reached over and ended the call, a call that had ruined my sleep. He gently hugged me from behind. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." "Jason Tate, you like me, don't you?" Jason Tate admitted it without hesitation. "Yes." A hint of joy rose quietly in my chest. "Since when? How come I didn't know at all?" 5 years ago." 5 years ago? I was shocked. How was that possible? I had only known Jason Tate for 1 year. Was this some kind of mistaken identity drama? 5 years ago, at Decker Airport. Jason Tate offered a few key words. 5 years ago, the airport, it was him. In my first year studying abroad in Germany, Ethan Carter and I had agreed to return home together for summer break. Who would have thought that when I arrived at the airport, there wasn't even a trace of Ethan Carter to be seen? I called him, only to find out that he had gone to Munich with his classmates. He said he'd texted me the night before, but I hadn't seen it. He assumed I couldn't return home on my own, so he had refunded my plane ticket without telling me. I didn't have any extra money to buy another ticket. My mother only gave me just enough for living expenses. Furious and helpless, I squatted in a corner of the airport, and my tears fell right then and there. A tall young man with a straight posture appeared before me, walking out of the backlight. In that moment, I thought I'd met an angel. "Why are you crying?" His voice was still a little youthful, yet somehow comforting. I wiped my tears. My plane ticket was refunded. To buy another one, I don't have the money. My face burned with embarrassment. The young man fell silent for a moment, then took my passport and ID and told me to stay where I was. I was truly naive back then. I didn't worry at all that he might be a bad person. I handed over my documents without hesitation. 10 minutes later, he came back with my plane ticket and my papers. "I'm sorry, I don't have the money on me right now to pay you back," I said hurriedly. "Can you give me a way to contact you? When I get back home, I'll transfer the money to you." He shook his head. "No need. It's just people from the same country helping each other." He then asked, "Which school do you attend?" "Humboldt University. My name is Wendy. I'll come find you, don't forget me." A month later, I went to his school. Only then did I realize I had forgotten to ask for his name. All I could do was sit and wait at the school gate for an entire day. Unfortunately, he never showed up. Later, buried in my studies, I gradually forgot about the incident, though I always wondered how, after meeting only once, that person had left such an impression on me. "I did go looking for you." Jason Tate's hand, which had been brushing through my hair, suddenly stopped. "I knew something had happened with your family. During that time, I went back home. When I returned to school, it was already half a year later. I went to your university too, but by then, you no longer remembered me." My shoulders instinctively shrank. During that period, for various reasons, all I could think about was Ethan Carter. Combined with academic pressure, I completely forgot about the angel who had once left a mark on my heart. "I'm sorry." "After that, I saw you many more times," Jason Tate continued. "The Spree River, Berlin Cathedral, Sanssouci Palace." Each place he named made my heart beat faster by one count. Back in college, because of my major, I had traveled all over Germany, to places big and small. I never imagined that there had been someone silently following in my footsteps the entire time. "And then," he said softly, "there was another man by your side, Ethan Carter." 1 year before graduation, Ethan Carter and I officially started dating. I suddenly felt a trace of regret. Why hadn't I recognized Jason Tate earlier? If I had, I wouldn't have mistaken Ethan Carter for my salvation. Growing up with Ethan Carter, I never had any special romantic feelings for him. He was simply the best stepping stone for me to escape the Miller family. "At that time, I saw you dating him," Jason Tate said, hugging and kissing me as he continued accusing me. Was I numb already? Why was he everywhere? "Do you hate me for being a nuisance?" Jason Tate suddenly sounded indignant. "No, that's enough. It's all in the past. What's there to hate?" I said. "What am I supposed to compensate you for? Lack of sleep?" I honestly didn't understand what Jason Tate was getting at. "We've already slept together. Now you're telling me we have to follow the dating process?" I really wanted to refuse him, but Jason Tate seemed to know exactly what I was about to say. He just looked at me in silence, his face expressionless, yet his eyes were filled with grievance, as if it might spill over at any moment. Fine. I really lost. Unfortunately, our date never happened. Ethan Carter had tattled to my mother. She ordered me to return home immediately, right now. At the gate of the Miller house, Jason Tate tightly held my hand. "Don't be afraid." I took a deep breath and pushed open the door of the Miller residence. Oh God, like a 3-court joint trial. Everyone who should be here, and everyone who shouldn't be, was present. "Wendy, who is the man behind you?" My mother stepped forward first. "Wendy, do you have any shame left? How dare you stay out overnight without coming home? Michael Miller followed close behind. Wendy, come here. I won't pursue what happened yesterday. My fiancé is still you. Ethan Carter offered this piece of false sweetness. He's Jason Tate. I hadn't even finished introducing him before my mother impatiently cut me off. I don't care who he is. Cut off all contact with him immediately. Wendy, Anna and I have already called off the engagement. You'll still be my fiancé from now on. Ethan Carter stepped forward, trying to take my hand. I avoided him. Wendy, after 2 years together, can you really bear to give it all up? Don't even mention whether I ever had feelings for him. Even if I truly had, after being abandoned by him, what right did he have to think I would still be unwilling to let go? Wendy, be sensible, Michael Miller pressed on. Ethan has already lowered himself. You should know when to stop. Every word from this so-called family was forcing me to bow my head. Michael Miller continued. Wendy, open your eyes. That pretty-faced guy you brought back, one look and you can tell he's after money. What money? I shot back. Money from where? My studio? My rebuttal left Michael Miller awkwardly silent. All the assets and shares of the Miller family were under his name. I didn't have a single dollar. If I hadn't built up quite a few connections while working as an assistant photographer, whether my studio could even exist would have been questionable. What right did Michael Miller have to say Jason Tate was after my money? That's enough, Wendy, my mother tried to smooth things over. Your brother was just speaking carelessly. Normally, I would have backed down, but not today. Today, I wanted to cut ties with the Miller family completely. Just now, why didn't you stop them? I asked coldly. Or was it because you couldn't bear to stop it? Mom, what am I to you, really? Why can't you protect me even once? My question made my mother's face turn icy. Wendy, how can you talk to your mother like that? And did Michael say anything wrong? He is after your money. I let out a cold laugh, pointed at Jason Tate, and said to Ethan Carter, the man you claim is after my money. 5 years ago, when you abandoned me to go to Munich, he bought me a plane ticket home. Ethan Carter's face turned deathly pale. Wendy, I don't care what grievances you have with him, my mother said impatiently. In short, you must cut off all contact with him. In 2 days, you and Ethan will hold another engagement banquet. She delivered her final verdict with no room for discussion. I'm afraid you'll be disappointed, Jason Tate suddenly interjected. That engagement banquet probably won't be happening. What right does a pretty-faced nobody like you have to speak here? Michael Miller snapped. Jason Tate didn't care in the slightest. He calmly took out 2 red marriage certificates from the inside pocket of his coat, documents he had quietly tucked away earlier when I wasn't paying attention. Wendy and I are already legally married. I'm afraid this engagement banquet will have to change its main character. The corner of Jason Tate's lips curved into a smile, warmth radiating from him. He was genuinely happy. Finally, he could tell them that he and Wendy were married. Why, Wendy? Why? Ethan Carter looked devastated. After all these years together, you're just throwing it away? Ethan Carter, I don't like you. I never have. My decisiveness made his face drain of color. He's just a bartender. He's not worthy of you, Ethan Carter shouted. Even if he were a beggar, I'd still be willing, I said, tightening my grip on Jason Tate's hand. His ears flushed a deep red. Ethan Carter completely collapsed. He had only been momentarily blinded. How could he have lost Wendy? Wendy, divorce him, my mother said coldly. A bartender isn't worthy of you. No. I lifted my head and refused. I am a member of the Miller family. I have to shoulder the responsibility of the Miller family. I let out a cold laugh, tearing apart the mask my mother had struggled so hard to maintain. Don't dress up selling your daughter for glory in such noble language. Besides, I'm not the only one in the Miller family. I pointed in Michael Miller's direction. Isn't there still someone over there who can bring honor to the ancestors? Go look for him. Wendy? Michael Miller roared and charged at me with his fist raised. The moment his hand brushed my sleeve, a powerful force knocked him away. Jason Tate calmly brushed the dust off his coat. Let's go. I nodded. As I turned my back, my mother's voice, filled with hatred, came from behind. Wendy, if you dare take one step out of the Miller house, don't ever come back. Was the Miller family really such a wonderful place? I didn't turn around. I wouldn't come back again. Outside, the wind picked up. A light breeze swept dry leaves across the ground, carrying a hint of chill. Jason Tate pulled me into his coat. It was incredibly warm. Jason Tate and I moved to Beijing. I did feel a little regret about closing that money-making bar, but Jason Tate didn't care at all. After getting off the plane, he leaned close to me mysteriously. "I'll take you somewhere later." "Where?" "You'll know when we get there." He didn't tell me we were going to meet his family either. "This is Grandpa." "Grandpa, this is Grandma." "Grandma, this is..." I followed along in a daze as Jason Tate introduced me to his entire extended family, my hands quickly filling up with red envelopes pressed into them by the elders. Jason Tate had truly given me a huge surprise. He turned out to be the descendant of a wealthy, prominent family with an impressive background. On the way back, Jason Tate deliberately teased me. "So, do you still regret closing that bar?" I annoyedly punched him. "If you don't regret it, why should I?" "And another thing," I added, "you took me to meet your family without telling me in advance. I didn't prepare anything." "An ugly wife has to meet her in-laws sooner or later," he said lightly. "I'm not ugly." "Then what is there to prepare?" His voice carried a hint of teasing. I shot him a glare, not wanting to see him so pleased with himself. "We're a contractual marriage. We agreed we'd divorce in the future," I said. Jason Tate fell silent. Huh. That felt good. The car made a smooth turn and came to a steady stop in the garage. I unbuckled my seatbelt and was about to get out when I pulled on the door, locked. I turned to look at Jason Tate, signaling for him to unlock it. He tilted his head slightly and smiled at me. Before I could react, he had already climbed over from the driver's seat and reclined the passenger seat. In the cramped space, I was completely pinned, unable to move. "Wendy, when did we sign a contract?" My throat tightened. It seemed we really hadn't prepared one. "We've met the family, registered the marriage, and slept together, and you're still saying it's a contractual marriage?" Jason Tate knelt halfway on the passenger seat, his gaze darkening. Hearing that, it suddenly felt as if he were accusing me of being a heartless woman. I wanted to defend myself, but Jason Tate suddenly bent down and hugged me tightly. "I waited for you for too long, Wendy. Don't abandon me again." His voice was restrained and sorrowful. I sighed and wrapped my arms around his waist. "You fool. Didn't you think about it? After leaving the Miller family, I had many choices. Why do you think I came to Beijing with you?" "I didn't dare," he said softly. "I was afraid it was just a dream and that I'd wake up alone." Jason Tate buried his face against my neck. Something damp soaked through my clothes. This man, so lacking in a sense of security. "Jason Tate, I love you." My clear voice echoed through the car. His arms tightened around me, his body trembling. Wendy, his Wendy, was saying she loved him. "I love you too, Wendy." Epilogue 1. The first time Jason Tate met Wendy was at the airport. She was squatting in a corner, crying uncontrollably, like an abandoned stray cat, soft, fragile, and pitiful. I walked over and found out it was just that her plane ticket had been refunded, yet Wendy said she didn't have the money to buy another one. I fell silent. For a moment, I even suspected she might be a scammer. How could someone studying abroad not have money for a plane ticket? While I was hesitating over whether I should just leave, I happened to glance at her tear-filled eyes. She looked truly pitiful. It felt as if something struck my heart. I took her documents, memorized her name, and her university. She wasn't a scammer. No scammer would be that foolish. Not even knowing my name and still handing all her documents over to me so easily. She said she would come back to school to find me. I didn't take it seriously, yet deep down I found myself quietly hoping. In the end, we were still just a little short of fate. We missed each other. Later, I went to her university. I didn't forget her, but she had already forgotten me. I followed in her footsteps, hoping for a chance encounter. But when we met, we were strangers. After that, there was another man by her side. I tortured myself, watching them date, watching them hug and kiss. After graduation, I returned to China, to the city where she was. I told myself that in this vast sea of people, if I were to meet Wendy again, I would never let go, even if it meant becoming the third party. Thankfully, we really did meet again. Epilogue 2. Jason Tate and I had been settled in Beijing for a year. One night, he suddenly sat upright in bed. "Wendy, we've never really dated." Our planned date a year ago had been interrupted by returning to the Miller house. After coming to Beijing, I'd been constantly busy with studio work and had no time for dating. We don't need to care so much about formalities, I said. Whatever others have, we don't necessarily need. No way, he said flatly. If others have it, we must have it too. What a nerve. The next morning, Jason Tate woke me up at the crack of dawn. I glanced at the clock, tried to endure it, then failed. Who goes on a date at 6 in the morning? He didn't even look at me, holding up 2 outfits and comparing them in front of the mirror. Wendy, sleeping early and waking early is good for your health. I had only fallen asleep around midnight last night. Maybe my expression was too serious. Jason Tate recalled how we'd been tangled together until late the night before and immediately felt guilty. This is our first date, he hurriedly added. Of course we should take it seriously. Fine, I said. Let's see what kind of date you can actually pull off. I never expected Jason Tate to choose an amusement park as our date location. I stared at him in shock. How did you know my favorite place is an amusement park? A strategist always has his clever methods, he said, deliberately keeping it a mystery. He didn't tell me that in order to know everything about Wendy, from childhood to adulthood, he had invested a large sum into a company tied to the Miller family. Michael Miller and Mother Miller had racked their brains and still had no idea what Wendy liked or disliked. In order not to lose that investment, Mother Miller had sought out the nanny who had taken care of Wendy since childhood. The nanny told him that Wendy's favorite place was an amusement park. Of course, his investment wasn't easily earned back. Half a year earlier, a project in Beijing had caused the Miller family to lose everything. Even the Carter family, which had been closely tied to them, suffered heavy losses. Because of this mistake, Ethan Carter was removed from his position by the board of directors of Carter Group. After the investment failed, Mother Miller and Michael Miller tried to approach Wendy, but all of it was blocked by Jason Tate. In the end, to ensure they would never appear in front of Wendy again, he had people send Mother Miller and Michael Miller abroad. According to the latest news, Michael Miller had gotten involved in gambling overseas and now owed an enormous sum of money. To pay off his gambling debts, he disguised Mother Miller, a woman whose age was hard to discern, as his own older sister and sold her into a nightclub. Jason Tate, come over here. From a distance, I waved at Jason Tate. I'd played so much that I'd forgotten everything else. Coming, Jason Tate replied, then ran toward me. Legend has it that when the Ferris wheel reaches its highest point, if you kiss your lover passionately, the two of you will stay together forever. Jason Tate and I chose this ride at the same time. In the end, as the cabin rose higher and higher, the entire cityscape at night lay beneath our feet. The transparent glass reflected Jason Tate's figure under the nightlights. He pulled me into his arms. At that moment, the Ferris wheel reached its peak. I raised my eyebrows and smiled. He lowered his head and kissed me, reverent, solemn, almost sacred. We'll be together forever, he said. Forever, forever. And that was the end of the story.